If you just happen to be looking for a 2-for-1 special today, you are in luck because that is exactly what this video is going to be. So approximately 48-ish hours ago, I sat down and just made an off-the-cuff video, just speaking off the top of my head, about the Wired article regarding Brian Tyler Cohen. I'd watched several videos on the matter, and I was just kind of giving my, frankly, surface-level knee-jerk reaction. Some of my opinions have changed, and I also feel like I did not explain the points that actually were good in the original video. The original edited video was 15 minutes. I think the video I'm going to show you in just a second is about 8.5 or so. I just want to kind of give a full picture of what my initial reaction to the story was, and also afterwards explain why my feelings have changed a little bit. And if you are not familiar with this story and don't know what I'm talking about, you probably don't follow politics on YouTube very often because this story is everywhere. In just the past day, I swear I've seen dozens of brand new videos that just dropped about this story. So let me go ahead and show that first video to you, and then I'll go over where I was right and where I was wrong. So number one is for those of you who are upset that Donald Trump is in office, for those of you who are upset that Donald Trump is in his second term, which is crazy. Do you want people to fight back or not? One of the biggest complaints that people who vote Democrat, mainly because they feel like they have no other choice, is that Democrats don't fight back. They might have pretty speeches. They might have passionate speeches. They might have some witty remarks here and there. That's cool. That's, I can jive with that. That's nice, I guess. But then when it comes time to actually do something, when it comes time to actually meet the opponent on the battlefield, when it comes time to actually put in the work and get your hands dirty, they still just have witty remarks or passionate speeches or little punchlines here and there, and that's about it. So do you want something to change or do you not want something to change? Because Republicans are doing a very good job of utilizing independent media. They're doing a very good job of utilizing influencers. So liberals and progressives and environmentalists and feminists and all these other groups on the left, y'all can sit here and go back and forth to each other about how crazy MAGA is all you want to. At the end of the day, something about the messaging for MAGA is working. And many things about Democratic messaging seems to not be working. Now, I am not saying that winning is the only thing that matters. I'm not saying that ethics should be completely set aside for the goal of getting candidates where we want them to be. Listening to some of the remarks in some of these videos with all of this backlash is like listening to an old school Democrat who is a polished politician and has pretty little speeches for you and says something along the lines of, Donald Trump is really shallow, but we're not going to engage in that behavior. And it's not just a matter of misunderstanding who Donald Trump is as an opponent. Like, you have got to be able to bring it. He was completely viewed as an underdog. He was not taken seriously as an opponent at all. But then once people kind of got an idea of who they were dealing with, Democrats still did not get this message of, okay, we need to be ready to go if we want to fight this guy. Republicans are not here to hold back. Republicans are not here to make sure that they're walking on eggshells. Republicans are not here to make sure they don't offend anybody. Republicans are not here to play nice. Democrats have got to adopt that mentality. That does not mean that no Democrats can have any boundaries or any lines that they won't cross or just say whatever horrible thought comes to their mind. But it does mean you at least need to be open to some change. And if that means that we see a rise of influencers on the Democratic side, just like we have seen on the right side, then maybe that's what needs to happen. And I'm sorry if they get paid by politicians. Aside from having to follow YouTube guidelines, I set up my camera, I talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. I don't have to get approval from anybody. I don't have to talk to anybody about what I'm going to make before I film the video. I don't have to run it by somebody to see if they like how it was edited. None of that. I don't have to do any of that. That is what true independence is. Once you have a media company, you're independent media in the sense that, okay, maybe you don't get a paycheck from Fox News, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, NBC, whoever else, right? You're not part of like a major media corporation, and that's fine. But now you're independent media. You have to make some money somehow. You have to at least fuel what you're trying to get going, right? And I think independent media has a lot of people who are very passionate about their viewpoints. I think independent media has a lot of people who are very authentic and genuinely want to pursue this or that goal with their media company. And I think there are a lot of genuine people in independent media who want to influence policy and influence politics in what they perceive to be a very positive way. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not 100% independent. Whether or not it's good for the independent media company is going to at some point influence the type of content that they're making. Doesn't mean it's going to totally take over, but at some point they have to make some content that's going to appease to whatever the core audience is. Those are just the kind of things that you need to think about if you actually care about the reach of your videos. And if you have an independent media company, you're not just some random person who's going to post on YouTube here and there whenever they feel like it. It's your job. It's just different. And I think when a lot of people hear independent media, they genuinely think of someone who just sets up a camera in their room and makes a video, and that's that, and then goes about their business. Ultimately, though, what I really get the least out of all of this backlash is people who are surprised. Now, Brian has denied that any messaging has been controlled by an outside source. He claims that he has never been told what he can and cannot say. And I'm having trouble being objective on that because I like Brian, so it's like, I don't really know if I should believe the article or him. But when I first heard this story, I kind of took it at face value, and my first thought was, well, this is the most unsurprising story ever. Because if you actually listen to what Brian has to say, a lot of his content is about Democratic strategy and how it's not good enough and how they're ignoring a lot of things like social media reach and getting on podcasts and utilizing the internet properly to make sure they're reaching the right folks and actually growing their base. And he doesn't just talk about that from the perspective of, gee, I wish the Democrat leaders would do something. I wish the Democrats would try. No, he says that as someone who is engaged in politics. He says that as someone who interviews Democrat officials. He says that as someone who wants to influence the future of Democrats reaching people online. He talks about wanting more influencers on the Democratic side to be successful. I do sort of get the aspect of people saying, well, if you're paid to put out certain types of messaging, you should disclose that. I've just always looked at it as if you're independent media and you have an actual media company, your money's coming from somewhere. It's just if I look at someone who has an independent media company and talks about being an independent media all the time, ad nauseum, and talks about wanting to be an influencer in politics and talks about wanting to help the Democratic Party change, like I just, at some point it seems like they would get at least some money from some type of DNC folks at some point. And I also think as a consumer of content, it's a little bit odd to watch content from independent media and not understand that their money comes from somewhere. And unfortunately, when it comes to politics, there are all kinds of forces at play. So you can have an influencer who accepts money from a company with no idea that it's actually funded by totally different people than what they thought. Like that happens to influencers all the time. I think part of the reason I have trouble understanding why people are so upset about this is that I have kind of a straightforward view on how I consume content and how I pick what videos I want to watch. So when I watch these talking head, political opinion type of videos, I'm looking for, I want more information on this story because it's breaking news. I want to know what your opinion is specifically. I just listened to the other side and I want to hear what you have to say. And I'm looking for things like, did you make your points clearly? Did you explain the story? Did you give any type of historical perspective? Like those are the kind of things I care about. I listen to videos all the time of people I disagree with. So agreement is not necessarily the biggest factor for me. But if you told me what you think, you explained your viewpoint, then you did your job and I don't really care beyond that. Whether I think you made that video because you were influenced by someone else to do so or because it was your own idea is kind of neither here nor there for me. Either I agree with your points or I don't. Either I think you made a good case for your perspective or I don't. Either way, it gave me something to think about, which is kind of all I'm looking for when it comes to political content. Sure, every now and then I gravitate towards something because I know I'll agree with that particular person or because I think I'll agree with what they have to say about that particular topic. But most of the time, I just want to hear you explain your perspective. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. And I feel like a lot of people who want specifically messages that they agree with, they want people to make that content not because they're being influenced by anybody to do it, not because they're being pressured to do it, but because they want to make that kind of content. I don't think that's a realistic expectation, especially when we live in an age where influencers and independent media are just constantly expanding. Okay, so if I'm being fully honest, I'm a little bit embarrassed by that video for a couple of reasons. Initially, I considered just uploading that video and then maybe filming a second video and uploading that separately, but I really feel like I don't want that floating out there on its own. So you heard what I initially said about 2 days ago. So several things to unpack there. So at the start of that video, I mentioned, if you want Democrats to fight back, why are you then going to go and get mad when Democrats are actually fighting back? Because if there's one thing that Democrats just have not done well lately, and probably have not done well for a very long time, is come up with real strategies that actually work. So here Democrats are trying to incorporate real strategies, and you guys are mad about it. Which leads me to the next point. I found this story to be so unsurprising because Brian Tyler Cohen constantly talks about wanting to be an influencer for Democrat messaging, wanting to be an active participant in fixing the Democrats' messaging problem. So I think when I first heard this story, part of me really just felt like, okay, maybe he didn't come out and say it, but he's kind of been saying it without saying it if you've actually watched his content. And thinking over that point in the past couple of days has really made me realize that I kind of did some mental gymnastics here to defend Brian. Because I like him, and I credit him with making me more open-minded about certain ideas. So I kind of want to come to his defense. Now, who knows? As this continues to unravel, maybe it will turn out that Brian is telling the truth, that he has not had his messaging controlled by anybody. He's also been very open and upfront about his involvement in founding Chorus. All that being said, my initial reaction to his defense really came from the fact that I like the guy. It was really not that objective, and I have to admit that. So here's what Brian had to say about this article.
At the risk of giving an internet troll more attention, I want to address a piece that Taylor Lorenz wrote yesterday for Wired. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it secret and agree to restrictions on their content. Literally nothing in this statement is true. The article is about Chorus, which is a nonprofit that I helped found to build up a creator ecosystem, which everybody says they want, but few are doing. So here's what Chorus is. It is a scholarship program to teach creators how to grow their accounts, foster engagement, launch their own shows, and become profitable on their own. It's an incubator program to build the pro-democracy ecosystem. Influencers and creators have never been more important when it comes to how Americans are consuming their news. The right has been doing this for years, and the left needs to catch up. Chorus does not pay creators for content, does not tell them what to say, does not control who they talk to or work with, and there is absolutely nothing in the contract that could even be reasonably interpreted to say that we do. Period. Full stop. Again, there are zero restrictions on their content. And with regard to keeping it a secret, there is a standard confidentiality clause in the contract to protect the privacy of the creators. On the literal first day of the program, it was made clear to all of the creators in our kickoff session that they were absolutely free to talk about Chorus. And we immediately followed up to confirm that in writing. Creators have videos about Chorus. They've got donation links to Chorus in their bios. I myself have made videos that were posted all over the internet about Chorus that reached hundreds of thousands of people. It is not a secret, and it never was. There's the implication in the article that this is some arm of the DNC or the Democratic Party. We have literally nothing to do with the DNC. I spend 0 minutes of my day thinking about the DNC. The creators do not toe any party line. How could we? There isn't a party line. Creators are absolutely allowed to speak out against the Democrats, and in fact, plenty do. And frankly, Chorus creators should and do criticize Democrats when they suck, and quite often, they do suck. I've seen posts saying that this is AIPAC funded, which couldn't be further from the truth. I'd venture to guess that most Chorus creators, myself included on both YouTube and Substack, have spoken out against the atrocities in Gaza. Lorenz says that the 1630 Fund is, quote, a powerful liberal dark money group. 1630 Fund is our fiscal sponsor. One of the largest donors to 1630 Fund is the same person funding Meteor's Reporters in Residence program, which Taylor Lorenz herself is a part of. And guess what her monthly stipend is? $8,000 per month. So she's criticizing an entity that is funded by someone that she is currently taking money from. I guess it's okay when Taylor Lorenz gets paid, but no one else. The monthly stipend that we offer is so that creators can do this work full time. We've had numerous creators in the cohort quit their jobs so that they can focus on creating content full time. That is what we want. I'm really proud that we can give creators that security for as long as they're in the program. We want people to create pro-democracy content full time.
I have probably watched that clip 25, 30 times in the past day. My initial reaction was, oh, okay, you know, he says that he has not had his messaging controlled. There you go, case closed. Now, to be fair, I am still willing to have some benefit of the doubt for Brian Tyler Cohen and for David Pakman. But I also have to be honest about where I was coming from when I made that first video. And the reality is that I was giving a knee-jerk, surface-level reaction, and I was just wanting to believe Brian just because. And I don't think that Democrats can sit here and judge MAGA for being part of a cult if that's what their reaction is whenever someone on their side is criticized. So I have become a lot more open-minded since that first video to the fact that I might be wrong about this. You know, Brian might be someone I enjoy watching. I don't know the guy. And even if we were personally close in real life, sometimes you don't know people. Anyone can say what their ethics are, or what their lines are, or what their boundaries are. It doesn't mean that's actually how they're going to live their life. And if I'm being honest, now that I've watched his response a few times, I do admit that I feel a little bit suspicious of it. Just because it's been almost a week now that this story's been out. Everyone has been talking about this, so if this was really something that was manufactured, it just seemed like we would have something a little more solid to prove that it was manufactured, and I'm not really seeing that. So it does seem that this story is holding up. And lastly, I think that my points were bad because I talked a lot about how I feel when I watch political content. How I feel about how I watch political content is not all that relevant to critiquing a story about how someone who makes political content is funded, or how they communicated that to their audience. So basically, my principle is I take things at face value. If you're someone who's fake, I don't really care. I don't really care. If I click on a video that's about a political topic, I might judge you or not judge you, but at the end of the day, I'm there for the content. Like, did you make your points? Did I get what I needed from the video? Did it make me think? Did it make me laugh? Did it make me question anything? Those are the things I care about. I'm very, very straightforward, which is part of why I'm not very successful on YouTube, by the way. To play the YouTube game, for example, you have to use all these gimmicky titles, and I just prefer things more straightforward. Like, I care about the content and that's it, nothing else. So let's say I make a video about how many golf trips that, Donald Trump is taking. That's not something I would normally make a video about, but in Donald Trump's case, this is something he's criticized about every single other president, and he has claimed that it's something he would not do, and that's something he absolutely has not followed through on. So I would title that video, Trump's Many Golf Trips. But what YouTube wants is all caps, hypocrisy. Trump, all caps, lies about how many golf trips he goes on. They want that gimmicky, dramatic stuff. And I just care about whether you make good points. And if you don't make good points, I still might not consider watching that video a waste of time. It still gave me perspective on what another type of person thinks. It still gave me perspective on another viewpoint. So since that's just my mindset in terms of how I consume content, I very much allowed that to influence how I reacted to this story, and I don't think that's very realistic. I'm certainly entitled to my own personal opinion about content. I'm certainly entitled to not be personally bothered by this story if everything that Taylor Lorenz said in her article turns out to be true. But having said all of that, I do think that funding matters. If Brian Tyler Cohen was really receiving $8,000 a month from this dark money fund, I just find it a bit difficult to believe that no messaging was controlled. And you don't really get to claim that you're independent media if you are taking dark money sources that control the messaging that you put out there. I think the biggest problem with this whole situation is that it's unfortunately teaching people that independent media can't be trusted. And independent media is supposed to be the answer to corporate media that's controlled by all these advertisers or told what they can and cannot say on air. Independent media is supposed to be the opposite of that. Independent media is supposed to be a place where you can trust that people are actually saying what they actually think. And if you remove that by bringing dark money into the situation and not disclosing that to your audience at all, then you just devalue independent media completely. And that's kind of the saddest part about this whole thing, because I think for people who genuinely want to be political commentators, basically, and make a career out of it and not have to worry about their boss telling them what their commentary can be, I think that matters, especially in a time like today when more and more people are getting into this kind of thing online. So in conclusion, I think I was just very wrong to be so dismissive of this story. It's a much bigger deal than I made it. And again, that has to do with just how I think and how I like to consume content and what I think of political influencers in general. If Brian and David end up proving Taylor wrong, I will certainly take note of that and recognize that, but so far it's looking like everything she said is kind of holding up. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think Brian was doing a lot of good. I hope he continues to do a lot of good. I'd like to see his career continue to thrive. But if you can't be honest with your audience, then that's a problem. And that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed this video, have this video, or even just a quarter of this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe.